It's a dynamic of how do you justify the dynamic that you are doing well and you are going to do well, even in the midst of other people not. And you're looking at the dynamic of that, and we're reiterating it because it's very important. You know, it's kind of like survivor's guilt in a way. You know, you have that dynamic. You have that dynamic. You see the difficulties around you. You know there are certain things that you can do to begin to interface, and you do that.
Hmm.
You know, whether that's a dynamic of being able to keep your job and keep the dynamic of what you're doing, and the added benefit of what you're doing is something that you love, that is going to be a rare commodity in the world coming up. And you're doing, and Lily, you're doing a dynamic that is complex and requires expertise, and you share a particular niche that allows you to, and is going to allow you to continue forward in the dynamics of a world that is becoming more and more technologically advanced, more and more utilizing the dynamics of AI, and that is not a negative thing, but utilizing the dynamics of AI and understanding that the interface with AI only works if you have a moral compass, because otherwise you what you get is all of the other controllers, those people out there that are not live and live kinds of people, and they are trying to do what they have always done, which is not really do any actual doing, but to affect things by what shall we say, utilizing propaganda, utilizing the collective energy, because they are manipulating, and they manipulate the collective energy through social media, through the dynamics of being able to master the way people respond to the consensus. And so that's, you know, and now if you find out that you are facing dynamics of energy that are a parallel to, that are in conjunction with the dynamics of the new movement, you know you are either on a side of the paradigm where things are going smoothly for you. That doesn't mean that your life is without problems, but that does mean that your life is, you know, you have a path forward. It's a logical path forward, you know, and at the same time, you know, what Adrian put up about the being an empath in the midst of so many people that are looking for, that don't have a clue, you know, that, and these are the people that are, what shall we say, most affected by this dynamic of the disintegration of government. But you
Yeah, but
know,
my husband's one of them.
yeah, we know that.
And I
But
kept hoping all of my what I've learned would rub off,
no, but
just
he
by
has his
being
own.
together.
Hold on, his way will become apparent. His way will become apparent. You are, you know, you are all coming together as family units in your own way. John, your daughters, your grandchildren, your grandchild is more apparent in the dynamics of your life. Lee, you know, even though they're not lovely people, in fact, the dynamics of your family is in a way drawing together. And that's what's going to
Mhm.
happen. Families are going to draw together in the midst of these dynamics. And if one person in a household has a job, usually that's going to be enough. And otherwise, everybody's going to do side hustles. You know, it's not like you're not going to do things. Look at Johnny; he can't sit still. Yeah, 'cause, 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 ' Well, you have to understand if everything crashes and burns, then everybody's going to be broke. Banks aren't. What are the bank is going to foreclose on every house because there's there where there used to be 3 million jobs, there's only 500,000 now, and people have to come to you have a prime example of what happened, what's going to happen when you look at what's happened with North Carolina, especially in Lee's area in Western North Carolina. In that way, it was horrible. Many people died. It was just bloody awful. But the way people came together, because Biden was not doing anything really through FEMA to really help very much. There was like letting people, what shall we say, survive through pulling up their own bootstraps. It was like you're on your own for the most part. But and yet the dynamics of the reflections of the best parts of human nature came forward, with people helping, and still, and even now that dynamic of energy still exists, where
They're still helping. Yeah.
yeah, well, and also Trump came through in the dynamics of recently, and he was able to bring to fruition approximately 80% of the cases that were still outstanding. So there's been a huge dynamic of movement. So there's a new level of hope and a new level of connection. And what people they're getting positive positive reward, positive reinforcement by coming together in that whole dynamic of what we have been talking about for months around the dynamic of community coming together. Strangers, neighbors that you did not know will just come out of the woodwork, because it just proves that human nature in its basic form is loving and compassionate. And so, you can at the time of greatest crisis is the time of greatest opportunities. And so if you look at the dynamic of the tragedy, and the dynamic in Western North Carolina and Tennessee and Kentucky,
And
um,
Georgia.
and Georgia, was and Florida, was all a piece of this energetic dynamic. And wasn't it interesting that in so many ways it occurred in one of the most religious parts of the country? And there was again, what is the one thing that carried people forward in that way? And it was their own personal moral compasses. Now, their own personal moral compasses were usually based upon the dynamics of the religions that they were taught when they were children. And the dynamic is that carried through, even though there are very few people practice that sort of dynamic, it becomes an inner movement. It becomes an inner way to operate. And so within that, we would suggest that, there's ultimately a positive reinforcement that comes from the whole thing. Now, it required at the same time, if you look at the dynamic, and this is the whole thing with the dark shadow, light shadow, with the yin yang energy that you all live in. It is a dynamic that it had to happen. That sort of tragedy, that sort of upheaval, had to happen in order for it to evoke the level of love, the level of connection, the level of caring that it did. And what's happening with the plane crashes, in a way, are a staccato. It's the same energy, but it's staccato. And so what you're realizing is that this change is happening on multiple levels, on multiple dimensions.